Hi, thank you for joining me for another short lecture. And today, being that we're in the middle of the holiday of Chanukiah, today I've decided to quickly cover how the biblical menorah may have looked. And the reason this is relevant to the holiday of Hanukkah is that we have this practice of making our Hanukkot resemble what many think the menorah in the temple may have looked like. And yes, friends, the practice of having our Hanukkot resemble in some way the menorah found in the temple is actually just a custom of the modern age. Actually, the Ner Tamid, that light that most synagogues have hanging above their aron, is supposed to be the actual representation of the menorah we had in the Beit HaMikdash. And to be more accurate, right, it's what represents the light of the menorah, which in reality was the sole purpose of the menorah in the first place, i.e. to give light in the temple. Which is why, regarding the practice of having a Ner Tamid in shuls today, some teach that this could also be accomplished by just leaving the light on. But regardless, having a Chanukiah in display today is more than just fulfilling our obligation of Persum Nisa, of publicizing the miracle, but it now includes, for many, owning and displaying a menorah that their group claims resembles the actual menorah that stood in the Beit HaMikdash. And friends, I know that for many out there, this is really not an interesting topic, mainly because I think we could all agree that there exists at least a general consensus on how the menorah would have looked, right? It would have had a base or a platform, a stem and branches, and if you get more detailed, right, it has flowers and bulbs. And the three platforms, like I said, that it stands on, not just one. So friends, today I want to explore and expound on a certain debate within the Orthodox world on how did the shape of the branches actually look. In other words, were they curved almost like half circles, or were they straight and angled 45 degrees? Actually, there's only one movement today that insists that the branches were angled at 45 degrees, and this group is Chabad Lubavitch. And not only do they say this, that this is the shape, but they actually go as far as to tell other Jews that they have the wrong menorah, to the point that they have even gone as far as to modify their English translation of the Chumash to read in this way, right? And you can see in the Gutnick Chumash that they go as far as to say that one shall not even draw a menorah unless it has straight branches. Now, honestly, it doesn't really matter how a menorah or Chanukiah is designed. Actually, you have to know that the practice of making Chanukiot to in some way resemble the one in the Beit HaMikdash first arose in and around the 16th century, right? So Jews before then traditionally just lit on plates or just lit regular lamps or candles. Actually, in my opinion, the reason the Hanukkah menorah did not, or the original Chanukiot did not resemble the one in the Beit HaMikdash in the past was actually because we have a halakha not to create things found in the Eichel, in the original sanctuary, which would include the menorah. Now, this is an actual halakha, like I said, brought down by the Rishonim, not just the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch, which also bring it down. And furthermore, most, including the Ramban, the Ran, the Meiri, and also the Rambam, hold that this is a Torah prohibition, either under the Torah's prohibition of lo tasun iti, of not making gods, as well as part of the Torah's obligation of umikdashi tiaru, to fear the sanctuary. In other words, there is a prohibition in Jewish law in regards to creating objects that resemble those that were used in the temple. However, since Chanukiot have 9 branches instead of 7, many have chosen to be meek on this issue. But you should know, especially for all those who ignorantly attack Jews for making menorahs with 9 branches instead of 7, that we have no obligation anywhere to make our Chanukiot to resemble the one that appears in the Beit HaMikdash, although they surely look nice. But I think the biggest issue that Chabadics have with the menorah used by Chabad is not that they have decided to stick to one style. No, friends, that itself is perfectly fine. But rather, the issue arises when they begin to insist that the only authentic shape of the menorah is the one used by them. They even go as far as altering photographs where the menorah appears on Chabad websites to fit what they've been taught is the correct shape. But regardless, the main reason Chabad Lubavitch uses the diagonally shaped menorah is because of a drawing made by the Rambam that surfaced in his Perush HaMishnayot. Yes, friends, because of one drawing, Chabad decided to modify menorahs worldwide to fit the supposedly new standard. Actually, the Gutnick Chumash in Parashat Truma regarding the construction of the menorah specifically writes that it is forbidden to even draw a picture of a menorah with anything other than straight branches. Actually, the Rebbe specifically ordered people to use straight-armed menorahs because, as he claimed, that the Ark of Titus, right, which presents a curved menorah, was only created to humiliate the Jewish people, right? A claim that, of course, had no historical precedent. Yes, the Ark was created to show that Rome defeated Yehuda, but the actual depictions of what they supposedly carried away was not. Now, actually, this V-shaped menorah was only adopted by Chabad in 1982. Actually, before then, they used the normative menorah. Now, this talk, my friends, please don't misunderstand it. It's not to criticize Chabad or their decision to adopt the V-shaped menorah. No, friends, this is only to combat those who feel that they have an imperative to tell everyone that if they don't have a V-shaped menorah, they are in some way using the wrong menorah, which unfortunately many do. So, that being said, we will start with the drawing that created the controversy, right? This is the Rambam's drawing, the Oxford Library's handwritten copy of the Rambam's Perush HaMishnayot, where the Rambam draws the menorah with diagonal branches. Actually, the Rambam never described the exact shape of the menorah, right? Either in Mishneh Torah or in any of his writings. In other words, in Hilchot Beit HaBehirah, in Perek Gimel Halacha Bet, all he states is that there are 6 branches that extend from another bulb in the shaft of the menorah. However, many think that because we have an actual drawing that the Rambam actually believed that the menorah looked in such a manner. However, on the same page of the Rambam's Perush HaMishnayot, he wrote that the purpose of his drawing was only to provide a schematic of the placement of the cups, bulbs, and flowers on the branches, right, on the stalks of the menorah. He even writes that while the bulbs were egg-shaped, he is just drawing them schematically so to make them easier to draw. And if one analyzes the drawing, you can even see that the half-moon-shaped object labeled flower on the far right is turned to its right side because there was no room on the page to draw it correctly. Actually, archaeological excavations of the Rambam's own synagogue in Old Cairo shows the menorah that he used or his community may have used. In other words, even in the Rambam Shul, they use a U-shaped menorah. Actually, the only other author that feeds the notion that the branches are V-shaped is none other than the Rambam's son, Avraham ben HaRambam. When he is asked about the shape of the menorah, he responds that the original menorah was in the shape that appears in his father's drawing. So, in terms of Mekorot, this for sure is no small fish. Now, some also say that Rashi states in his Perush that the branches are diagonal. However, one issue with his claim is that the word he used, alakshon, which is translated as slanted, could easily mean curved, right? Alakshon agul, meaning rounded, or alakshon yashad, meaning straight. Now, why should we assume that Rashi would have thought that they were straight when no synagogue in Rashi's time or even in human history has ever been discovered that had diagonally shaped menorah drawings or murals? Also, if Rashi could only be understood in this manner, why did Chabad only adopt the V-shaped menorah in 1982, i.e. after seeing the Rambam's drawing and not before? But regardless, friends, what we do know for sure is that neither the Rambam nor Rashi ever saw the menorah. In other words, if you're going to ask anyone or going to trust any opinion, you should trust people who actually saw the menorah, because when the Beit HaMikdash was standing, the shape of the menorah was common knowledge, mainly because it was taken out every Chag. In other words, the menorah was displayed for the people to see every holiday. So the first place we should check is Eretz Yisrael, or Beit Atikah, Yerushalayim in particular, right? I mean, we even have Josephus and even Philo-Judaeus stating that the menorah had round arms. Not to mention that the Hashmonaim made coins with round arm menorahs. And yes, they were all Kohanim. Now, another rabbinic source that held that the branches were, in fact, round was the Ibn Ezra in his Perush and Shemot. He specifically writes that the branches were half circles. So friends, ultimately, it doesn't really matter what shape you use for your Chanukiah, your Hanukkah menorah, but for sure, what we shouldn't do is try correcting others stating that they in some way are using an incorrect menorah. So friends, have a happy Hanukkah, Hanukkah Sameach, and for more information about everything Jewish, please visit bejewish.org. Thank you.